Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello and welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Wednesday, November 12th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 657 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And today we are previewing all angles of the New York Jets Week 11 matchup against the New England Patriots, a Thursday night prime time divisional showdown as the 2-7 New York Jets take a trip up to Foxborough to face the red-hot 8-2 New England Patriots, winners of 7 in a row. Tomorrow, 8:15 p.m. Eastern prime video. And today, we'll take a look at the Jets offense, how they match up against the Patriots defense. We'll dive into the Jets defense against the Patriots offense, matchups to watch, players to watch for in this game, and my prediction, as always, coming at the end of today's episode. But as we always do, before we dive into the meat and potatoes of this matchup and take a look at what the New York Jets need to do to pick up a win, take a look at what to watch for in this game offensively and defensively for the New York Jets. Even want to touch on to some special team stuff as well, because the New York Jets special teams deserve some praise for the way they've played this season, especially recently coming off of a monster week against the Cleveland Browns. You look at some of the odds in this one. The New York Jets come into this 13.5-point favorites, according to ESPN Bet Sportsbook. This line's been 13.5. It's been 11.5 in a couple places. So it is a massive, massive spread. Over/under for this one set at 43.5. And ESPN Analytics matchup predictor is giving the New England Patriots a 71.2% chance of winning, and the New York Jets just a slim 28.6% chance of winning. And I think that's obvious. I think we all kind of expected the Jets to come into this one as a massive underdog, short week on the road, red-hot Patriots team, a Jets team that's just 2-7, even though they have played better these last two games, coming out of the bye week, picking up a nice win against the Cleveland Browns, albeit ugly, but a win is a win. You're seeing progress from Aaron Glenn. You're seeing progress from this team, which is good. This is a massive test. This is a tall task for Aaron Glenn and the New York Jets. And we'll learn a lot about this team, and we'll learn, again, a lot about this coaching staff in this one, because they were able to come out of the bye week and pick up a win against the Cleveland Browns, something that previous regimes, specifically Robert Saleh, did not do a good job of, which was extra time to prepare. Coming out of bye weeks, they struggled. They would always come out flat. They wouldn't be ready to go. Aaron Glenn had the team ready to play and picked up a win coming out of a bye week, which is something over the last decade the Jets don't do well. Now the challenge for Glenn is a banged-up Jets team, Garrett Wilson not playing in this game. You have an offense that hasn't produced where you'd want it to produce. You have a road game, short week, Thursday night, a team that's won 7 in a row with an MVP candidate at quarterback. This is a massive, massive task. And I'll say this, I'm pretty pumped up for this game for that reason. I'm not going to sit here and say that the Jets are going to win. Spoiler alert, I don't think the Jets are going to win this game. I think 99% of Jets fans would assume the Jets are not going to win this football game. I think most NFL fans are going to be on board. You look at the spread, you look at the circumstances, it's going to be extremely difficult for the New York Jets, with the way the offense is played, without Garrett Wilson, to go on the road against a Patriots team that's the number 1 seed in the AFC, all of a sudden starting to gain some separation in the AFC East. We all went into this year expecting the Buffalo Bills to run away with the division again. And here we are, week 11. We sit here November 12th, the day before tomorrow night's Thursday night game, and the New England Patriots are 8-2. The Bills are 6-3. And the Patriots here are riding high, playing well, and find themselves third overall seed rather in the AFC, first in the AFC East, right in the conversation as the season moves forward. But I'm excited for this game, and I'm fired up for this game because this is a huge test for Aaron Glenn. This is a massive test for a lot of these players on this roster, for this coaching staff, to really show us how you're improving, to really show us what you got. And I'm not going to sit here and every Jet fan is on board with this. The Jets aren't going to win. Not that I'm saying that the Jets are going to win this game, win 7 more in a row, finish 10-7, go on a crazy run. No, that's not what it's all about. But the Jets have won 2 games in a row. They won a game coming out of a bye week. They've shown incremental improvements. And this is a massive challenge. And this is a great test and a really good opportunity, in my opinion, to see really how much improvement Aaron Glenn has made. It's one thing to beat a Cincinnati Bengals team and put up 39 points on them against a defense with the Bengals that's awful. It's one thing to beat a Cleveland Browns team that's awful. It's another thing to go on the road and really be competitive, make some plays, make the right decisions in game for Aaron Glenn. That's a whole nother challenge, and he gets to have that challenge here. And I think this is also another tall task and a really interesting game, and why I'm really looking forward to tomorrow night and excited to see what this Jets team can do and what Aaron Glenn can do. Is you look at some of the previous games against good teams for the Jets, they've struggled this season. You go back to Buffalo week 2, they got blown out. Their worst performance of the season, 20-point loss, 30-10, disgusting. Game was over in the first quarter, right? Right when Justin Fields fumbled, the game was over. Even the Tampa Bay game, as much as the score indicates it was a closer game, it took a massive, heroic fourth quarter comeback just to make that a game. And then your defense couldn't get a stop when it mattered most. Block field goal return by Will McDonald, all of that, and you still found a way to lose. For the first 3 quarters of that game, though, it was ugly. So Bills ugly, Bucks ugly. Cowboys aren't a great team by any means, but that was ugly at home as well. They had a ton of success. It wasn't until late in the game where you started to put up some points offensively, and defensively, it was awful. You had a couple turnovers. You had the end of half sequence where you let up some points. Instead of going down 10-3 at halftime, you went down 23-3. It was that 13-point swing in just about 3 to 4 minutes with the Breece Hall fumble. We all know what happened. So that took place. You then no-showed against Denver offensively, an 8-2 team. So the point here is, when the Jets this season have played their tougher teams, when they've gotten opportunities against better teams, not just the Bengals and Browns who they beat, they've struggled, and they've had some glaring issues in those games. And I look at tomorrow night as a huge opportunity now. You've won 2 games in a row. It feels nice to say the Jets haven't lost since October 19th. That's nice to say for once. The Jets have gone 3 straight weeks here of feeling good about wins because you got the win against the Bengals. You can enjoy that over the bye week, and then you now got the win over Cleveland. And I think what's been so impressive with Glenn these last couple weeks is his ability to have this team ready to play despite all the outside noise. And I mean that with going back to the Bengals game. You had the Woody Johnson comments during the week. That created a whole outside noise, unnecessary distraction that the Jets didn't need. He had to address the team, address Fields. They went out there, got the job done. Cleveland, just a couple days prior, you traded away Sauce Gardner, you traded away Quinnen Williams. You made headlines at the deadline. You made massive moves. 2 guys you take away from that locker room that were 2 big pieces, but he was able to have the guys ready to play coming out of a bye week. Emotionally from that win, there wasn't any hangover. They went out there and found a way to win. Even if it was ugly, they came out on the winning side, which is important. Now it's a short week against an 8-2 Patriots team, a huge challenge for Glenn and this coaching staff to really show that they truly are improving and heading in the right direction. and really see where you are and rank amongst divisional opponents. It's another thing that's so important. How many years have we gone by where the Jets just get smacked in their own division? Their one opportunity so far, or two opportunities so far, the Buffalo loss and then the Miami loss. Show something against a divisional opponent. Go out there, be ready to play. Make this a competitive game against a divisional opponent when really the entire world expects you to get blown out. So those are just some of my opening thoughts on this one and where things stand with the Jets and heading into this game and why I think tomorrow is a really big opportunity for this group, specifically this head coach, taking a team dealing with some injuries, short week, clearly a discrepancy in talent between the Jets and the Patriots. You've got an offense in New England that's flying around. You got an offense with the Jets that's struggling. All those things said, though, can you go out there and make it competitive? Can you go out there and show positive signs? Can you go out there tomorrow and make this a game? Heck, go out there tomorrow and pull off a crazy upset. That's what I want to see. And only time will tell. A little over 24 hours away from the time of this recording. So as we dive into the matchups and a little bit of what the Jets actually need to do in this game to try and find a way to pick up a win, because it won't be easy. Couple injury notes. Injury report at the time of this recording isn't out just yet, but AZ Thomas, don't expect him to play. Dealing with the concussion, won't clear protocol in time. Garrett Wilson won't play. Rich Cimini reports that he was out 3 to 4 weeks. Glenn certainly didn't like that, but either way, Garrett Wilson feels like they rushed him back with the knee maybe a little bit last week. Hurt it again, so he's out. Luckily, no surgery, just rehab. I'm certainly in the grouping of people, and I think most Jet fans are, if as much as it stings to not watch Garrett Wilson play, as much of it as it stings to see Garrett Wilson trending in the direction of not having his fourth straight 1,000-yard, 80-catch season, and I want him to do that more than anybody else, but just as much as the next Jet fan, I think this is the right approach. Don't risk his long-term health for a 2-17. If it means even shutting him down for the rest of the season, do that. You need him long-term. You need him healthy, ready to go moving forward than just these remaining 8 games where you don't want this injury to turn into something that affects next season, and you want to avoid that. So just some of the injury updates there with the Jets. Now, in terms of the Jets offense, look, we'll start with Fields here. I've said this a couple times this week, in these last couple of days, just talking to some people, and I even mentioned a little bit on this podcast. You got nothing to lose tomorrow. That's the way I approach tomorrow's game with the Jets, specifically Justin Fields in this offense, Tanner Engstrand. You have nothing to lose. Nothing to lose at all. You're a massive underdog on the road against a 8-win Patriots team that's won 7 in a row with an MVP at quarterback. Justin Fields just himself has nothing to lose tomorrow. You're trending in the direction of not obviously being the long-term piece here. And you've been struggling, all these different things, assuming Fields starts, and I do assume Fields starts. Now, I don't think it would actually be a bad idea to put Tyrod out there on a short week and kind of surprise some people, because at this point, as much as Glenn won't reveal who is playing quarterback, playing Justin Fields every single week is turning into, it's not going to surprise anybody. There's no competitive advantage there if you just keep rolling Fields out there. So maybe we get shocked and Tyrod's out there under center in the first drive of the game, but assuming it's Fields, let it rip. Let it rip. Take deep shots. Take chances. You don't have Garrett Wilson. You're facing an incredibly tough Patriots defense. Take risks. Take chances. You're not just going to be able to win this game by trying to not make mistakes, playing not to lose in a way. Play to win. Take chances. Take risks. Throw the ball downfield. I've said many times, who knows, maybe you get a PI, and that's just as good as a reception. Take risks. Last game, it was ugly for Justin Fields. Just 6 of 11, 54.6% completion percentage, and I don't want to hear, oh, he only threw 11 passes. If you watch the game, Justin Fields did not play well last week. Let's stop pretending that he only threw 11 passes and that's why he couldn't get into a rhythm. That's not why. Okay, I think that's pretty clear. 54 yards on the afternoon, 4.9 yards per attempt, a touchdown, a pick, 60.4 passer rating, and a 15.8 QBR against what is a good Browns defense despite their record. 42 of those 54 yards was on the screen pass to Breece Hall. He had -5 net passing yards in the first half. Those things will fly against the Cleveland Browns and a rookie quarterback in Dylan Gabriel, who is still trying to find his way and frankly looks overwhelmed right now at the NFL level. But those things will not fly against a Patriots offense that boasts Drake May, an MVP contender, who can go down and score at any moment. So you've got to find a way to score early in this game. You can't have a slow start offensively. When you look at Fields overall, 113 of 178 this season, that's 63.5%. 1,143 yards, 6.4 yards per attempt, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, 90.6 passer rating, and a 35.7 QBR. Get Mason Taylor involved, get A.D. Mitchell involved, these different receivers. And that's kind of my next point here as we transition into other things to look for in this offense. Without Garrett Wilson, I want to see a ton of A.D. Mitchell. Didn't play last week, still getting caught up with the playbook, right? Got traded on Tuesday, practiced with them on Wednesday, not enough time to play on Sunday. You expect to see him out there tomorrow. He's got to be your number one receiver. I want to see A.D. Mitchell. I want to see a ton of John Mechie, and I want to see a ton of Arian Smith. Those 3 guys tomorrow, throw them the football. Give them opportunities. Let's see what you have in some of these depth receivers. Let's see what you have in your new addition in A.D. Mitchell, who myself and I think a lot of other Jet fans are intrigued about the possibility of him being a long-term fit here. But in order to find out if he's a long-term fit, you got to give him the opportunities. You got to give him a ton of run. You got to get him the football. So A.D. Mitchell tomorrow, he's got to be your acting wide receiver number 1, and he's got to be that moving forward. You've got to see some more John Mechie. He only had 1 catch last week. Let's see more of him. And let's see more Arian Smith. More specifically with Arian Smith, get Arian Smith the football. There was the play last week where he was open. Fields didn't hit him. There's been a couple plays where Arian Smith's been open, and he hasn't gotten the ball. Let's get him the football as well. Spread the ball around. Get some of these other guys involved. Not only does that help you try and win tomorrow with working with what you have, but it's also an evaluation phase at this point in the season where you need to find out what you have behind Garrett Wilson. And without Garrett Wilson, you have more of an opportunity now to find out what you have in these guys because they're going to get a lot more opportunities. They are next in line now to get all the targets. So A.D. Mitchell tomorrow, to me, he's got to have a ton of chances. He's got to get the ball a ton, and hopefully he can make some plays because him making plays and showing progress is good for the now and good for the future. Ideally, one of Mitchell or Mechie or Arian Smith, one of those guys, specifically A.D. Mitchell, probably boasts the best chance of this happening. Can he be your wide receiver 3 of the future? And moving forward, that really helps you in the offseason where if A.D. Mitchell shows you enough to say, I think wide receiver 2 is pushing it a little bit too much, but if he shows you enough to say, we trust him as our wide receiver 3, that then limits you to only needing to find a wide receiver 2 and not having to find a wide receiver 2 and a wide receiver 3. And then, okay, maybe we have our wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. A.D. Mitchell, if he can comfortably slot in, Garrett Wilson as your 1, A.D. Mitchell as your 2, or your 3, find your 2, you could start to feel better about that trio next season. So let's see some of that tomorrow. Mason Taylor as well. Want to see more of him. He's a guy that last week only 1 catch for 4 yards, but prior to that was showing a lot of good progress. Had the really good game against Miami, had the really good game against Dallas. Didn't do a whole lot against Denver. Offense as a whole didn't do anything. Came back, couple plays against, had a couple catches against Carolina, had the big touchdown against the Bengals from Breece Hall. Finished the day with 5 catches. Last week only 1 catch. So tomorrow, Mason Taylor, get him those 5 to 6 targets, and let's see 3 to 4 catches around there, and third down as well, get him involved. He's been a really good safety blanket in that aspect of being reliable, which is something Mason Taylor does really well. He's been a safety blanket, finding the pockets in the defense. So Mason Taylor as well. You try and piece this together without Garrett Wilson, that's your realistic path. Now, we have to talk about Breece Hall. And Breece Hall's huge again tomorrow because this is going to be a very bumpy passing offense. It's going to be very tough for this team to get things going through the air. And it's going to be a big challenge because I just want to read you some of the rankings here with the Jets and the Patriots. Jets offense this year, 28th in the NFL. They're 4th in rushing offense, 32nd in passing offense, tied for 25th in scoring. When you look at the Patriots defense, they're the 8th ranked defense in football overall, number 1 rushing defense in the NFL, the 21st passing defense in the NFL, and the 6th scoring defense in the NFL. Jets as a team averaging 141.8 yards per game on the ground. Patriots are only giving up 79.2, under 80 yards on the ground this season per game for the New England Patriots. They've been excellent in that category. Some of their new defensive line additions up front that they brought in the offseason, headlined by Milton Williams, of course. They also brought in, of course, Harold Landry as well, who's provided a spark from a pass rushing standpoint. Revamp that defensive line. They've been excellent against the run. All 3 levels. They've been really, really good against the run. You expect to probably see a lot of stack in the box. That's the importance of having field stretch to field and try and keep the defense guessing that way, where you stretch the field, open things up a little bit from a pass game perspective, get some early completions to keep them guessing. And ideally that opens up Breece Hall. You look at Breece Hall last week, had the big game, 22 receptions. We'll talk about the big screen pass first from Breece Hall, but Breece last week had the big 42-yard screen pass for a touchdown, which if it wasn't for that, who knows? We're probably talking about a 1-8 Jets team right now going into Cleveland coming off of a loss out of their bye week. But at 21 carries, 83 yards, and 4 yards per carry on the ground. And he had that big reception for 42 yards and a touchdown. Get Breece involved a ton in the receiving game too. More screen passes to Breece. That's been something that we've been pounding the table for every year with Breece Hall. Get him the ball more as a receiver. And without Garrett Wilson, Breece really is probably your next best receiver. So get him the ball in the receiving game, but he's got to be the focal point again in this offense. Even with Garrett Wilson, he's got to be the focal point. His ability on the ground and as a pass catcher is elite. And you look at Breece Hall this season, he's had a really solid season, all things considered, even through some of the really bad games with this Jets offense and some of the inconsistencies they've had in the run game. All things considered, Breece Hall has put up a really good year considering the situation. 138 carries, 664 yards, 4.8 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. He's had 7 runs this year of 20-plus yards, which is tied for second in the NFL, tied with Jahmyr Gibbs. And he's 10th in the NFL in yards. Breece has put himself back in that conversation to when he's healthy and playing at his best. He's one of the better running backs at his position. He's a top 10 running back at his position when he's at his best. And I still think there's another level there with better quarterback play and a less predictable offense. 22 receptions, 220 yards, 10 yards per reception, and a touchdown through the air for Breece. So that has put him total through 10 games with 168 total touches, 884 yards, 5.5 yards per touch, and 3 touchdowns. Well on his way to another well over 1,000 scrimmage yard season, and he's on his way to his first 1,000-yard rushing season. And I think what's so important with Breece is not only is the yards and just the simple stuff there and the stats are there, but you watch him, he looks like the Breece Hall that us Jet fans all got super, super excited about 2 years ago, which is when he hits the open field, he makes it look easy. Good vision. There was a couple plays last week where he cut back, found the hole. Things like that weren't happening last year. And when Breece is at his best, the vision's there. The ability to get to the open field and make it look easy. I said it last week in the post-game pod. That screen pass was so similar to the one we saw against the Giants back in 2023, also coming out of the bye week, the only time Salah won coming out of the bye week. In that ugly rain slop game when he had that screen pass for a touchdown from Zach. That was so similar to what we saw rain, bye week, Browns, offense not moving the football. You give it to Breece in the open field. Defenders are just chasing him, and he makes it look easy. So you want to see a lot of Breece tomorrow. It's going to be a huge challenge because this is a Patriots defense that's really, really good at stopping the run. and a defense that you expect to stack the box and predict the run if the Jets can't get things going in the pass game. But 4.8 yards per carry, he's back up 2 from a yards per carry standpoint. That was something that, too, was very alarming with Brees last year. And just in general with Brees, back to the eye test, everything's been improved for him this season. But back to the eye test with him, there was so many times last year where he kind of was just falling, right? Hole wasn't there, or hole was there and he misses it, and he kind of just goes into the back of the offensive lineman and falls. There wasn't many even productive runs. Like Brees's runs this year have been so much more productive and so much more consistent. There hasn't been many of those 1 to 2 yard runs where he just kind of falls like we saw last year. And fumbling as well, which was an issue. 7 fumbles in his first 2 years. He's only had 1 this year. He had 5 last year. So that's been better. And he's well on his way to having the most first downs in his career. He's got 37 already, which I think speaks to some of the big runs he's had and the consistencies he's had with the yards per carry back up to above his career average and well above where he was last year. So that's when you look at the Jets offense, what to look for tomorrow, where they've got to do well. When you look at the Jets defense against this Patriots offense, this is a Jets defense that comes into the NFL 19th total defense, 329 yards per game allowed, 25th against the run with 138.2 yards per game allowed, 8th against the pass, 190.8 yards per game allowed, and then 26th in scoring defense, 26.8 points per game. Patriots offense, 10th total offense in football, 359.1 yards per game, 16th rushing offense in football, 117.7 yards per game, 8th passing offense, and 8th scoring offense, respectively, 241.4 pass yards per game, and they're putting up 26.5 points per game. Drake May, he's the big headline. He's the big story. He is top quarterback right now in the NFL this season, right in the heart of the MVP conversation, and a massive reason for this New England Patriots turnaround. Him and Mike Vrabel, you get your coach, you get your quarterback. You go from 3 wins a year ago, or 4 wins rather a year ago, to 8 wins this season, first in the AFC East, 3rd overall in the AFC, and right now you have to throw the Patriots in the conversation for a Super Bowl contender. And with Drake May playing at his level, he continues to play this way, New England's going to be a tough out. May this season has completed 205 of 286 passes, which is a very impressive 71.7% completion percentage, 2,555 yards, 8.9 yards per attempt, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 113.9 passer rating, and a 72.9 QBR. He's 3rd in yards. He's tied for 3rd in touchdowns. He's 5th in passer rating and 5th in QBR. Drake May's been phenomenal. And he has been just so consistent. I think what's so impressive about Drake May is just the completion percentage, really, and the consistency for that. And for a player in his 2nd year to do that is really, really impressive. And that was something that always impressed me with Drake May. I was one of the, not to try and say I was right about this, but back when Drake May was coming out of college, I had him over Caleb Williams. I thought Drake May had a higher floor. I thought Caleb Williams had the higher ceiling, more bust potential. Drake May had the lower ceiling, but less bust potential, if that makes sense. And so far, it's panned out. You've given him year 2. He's taken a really, really good year 2 jump and is right in the MVP conversation. And the completion percentage has been out of this world. There's been games where he has completed upwards to over 90% of his passes. And I think what's so impressive about Drake May is, and why it's just so impressive in general and why he's in the heart of the MVP conversation, is he's doing this with not any real elite weapons. The Patriots offense, the weapons they have, is not much different from what they were rolling out last year, where they went 4-13. And a lot of that goes to coaching. This roster in general, they did spend a lot of money and they did shore up a lot of holes, but there are a lot of carryover from a year ago. And that's a credit to coaching. And from an offensive perspective, it's also a credit to Drake May for elevating the talent around him, making it work with what he's got. This is a team that your number 1 receiver, Stephon Diggs, he's not the same player he once was. The run games had some hiccups. Travion Henderson just recently has started to pick it up. We'll get to him here more in a second. Same thing with Ramondre Stevenson. He has missed some games, also hasn't played very well when he's been out there. All of that being said, Drake May has been phenomenal. And Drake May has been arguably the second or biggest reason, however much you put into stock with Vrabel. Him and Vrabel, 1A, 1B on this Patriots turnaround. Now, one thing I will say with Drake May, and this is where tomorrow night you look at this Jets defense, the way to attack him, the way to take advantage and try and slow him down here is, number one, the sacks. Drake May quietly has taken a ton of sacks. I don't think this has been much of a talking point as, let's say, a Cam Ward, the amount of sacks that he's taken this year. A little bit different because he's a rookie and the Titans are a disaster. That's been a big talking point, though. But Drake May quietly has taken a ton of sacks this season. 35 sacks taken by Drake May this year, which is second most in the NFL, including back-to-back 6-sack games against the Browns 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago and in the Falcons 2 weeks ago. And that was the Myles Garrett 5-sack game where he got home to Drake May 5 times. They lost the game, but Drake May got beat up. Drake May was getting knocked around. And I look at this Jets defense tomorrow, that has to be an opportunity, that has to be a key for this Jets defense is to get home on Drake May. He's gone sacked 35 times, second most in the NFL, only behind Cam Ward. And you look at this Jets defense, they're coming off of a game where they had arguably their best performance of the season and coming off of a game where they've really finally exploded back onto the scene. This has been a defense that hasn't gotten enough sacks this year, hasn't gotten enough pressure this year. But against Cleveland, they were able to get a lot more pressure and make Dylan Gabriel's life miserable. And I look at Will McDonald specifically as a guy who the last 2 weeks has played much better. He's got 5 sacks in the last 2 games. He had 4 sacks against Cleveland, which tied the Jets single game record previous, which is held by John Abraham and Mark Gastineau. He had 7 pressures against Cleveland, which was a career high. And you look at the defensive line as a whole last week, they had 26 total pressures. Jermaine also had a sack. Quincy Williams also had a sack. That's where you got your 6 sacks, 4 of those from Will McDonald. Some other highlights. Juwan Briggs had a career high in pressures with 6. Jermaine Johnson had 5 pressures. This has been a defensive line that has struggled this year for the most part, has been below expectations. But last week, they exploded onto the scene. Will McDonald last week looked like the player that we expected to see all year this year. Now is at the 7-sack total for the season with back-to-back sacks in back-to-back games, 5 sacks over the last 2 games, including the big sack against Cincinnati late in the game when you give credit to the Jets defense. They got the stop when they needed it most. So Drake May has taken a ton of sacks this year. Tomorrow, I look at an opportunity for this Jets defense to get home and get him to the ground a lot. And that's the top way to try and stop him and slow him down. Also, he's thrown 3 interceptions in the last 3 games. So quietly, the interception numbers from 2 picks in the first 8 games, he has now thrown, or the first 7 games rather, he has now thrown 3 interceptions in the last 3 games. Jets defense has not had an interception yet this season, which is still just mind-numbing to me. That still the only team in the NFL without an interception. They are horrible at forcing turnovers. Can you force a turnover tomorrow? Drake May, 3 games straight with an interception. Can you go out there and make that 4 games straight? And it's not even that the Jets don't get opportunities with interceptions. They just don't catch the football. I mean, Jarvis Brownlee Jr. last week had one go right through his hands. Unacceptable. And in a road game like this where Jets are clear underdogs, there's a clear difference in these 2 teams. The Patriots are clearly the better team. The way you try and close the margins and make this a game is turnovers, things like that. Those little things that go a long way. So that's the Drake May side of things and the approach there from the Jets defense. When you look at this Patriots run game, it's been a bumpy season, but quietly here the last couple games it's gotten better, and that's because Travion Henderson has started to round into form a little bit. You look at the Tampa Bay game, he had 14 carries, 147 yards, 10.5 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns last week. By far the best game for him this season, and by far the best rushing game from the Patriots' perspective, not even just this season for TreVeyon Henderson, the best game of his career. Second round pick, of course, out of Ohio State, 38th overall. But you look at the last 3 now for TreVeyon Henderson, not just against Tampa Bay, but you look at the last 3 games, Tampa Bay, Atlanta, and Cleveland. Cleveland, by the way, good defense. He's put up in these 3 games 38 carries, 277 yards, 7.3 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. He's been playing better. And the big 69-yard touchdown last week, of course, was the highlight. That was the difference maker in the game. Huge play, huge moment in his young career. So quietly the last 3 games, he's come onto the scene a little bit more, specifically last week against Tampa. 2 touchdowns. He's got 3 on the year. It came in the same game, 2 of those. So you look at his numbers overall in the season, 81 carries, 430 yards, 5.3 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. Important for this Jets defense to not let that Tampa Bay game carry over and try and slow him down and take away this run game, which has been done a lot this season. And that's where you can really try and then tee off and get home to Drake May if you're able to slow down the run. Couple other things here. Diggs, look at him as the number 1 wide receiver, 50 receptions this season, 61 targets, 554 yards, 11.1 yards per reception, 3 touchdowns. I'm very little concerned with the Jets secondary going into tomorrow because you don't expect to see A.Z. Thomas. And with that, kind of puts you in a little bit of an interesting spot because you saw Jarvis Brownlee Jr. last week play outside and Isaiah Oliver slot into the nickel. And that was not beneficial for Jarvis Brownlee. He really struggled. He's a nickel corner, not an outside corner. So I'm curious on how the Jets approach that tomorrow. Brandon Stevens, he locks in his spot. But without A.Z. Thomas, how do you approach the nickel and outside corner roles there? You also have Jasir Taylor, but you're really kind of digging out your depth at corners. So it's a challenge against Drake May. While this is a team that doesn't boast an elite number 1 receiver, it's not like you're going up against a Jamar Chase or a T. Higgins, although they did that with A.Z. Thomas healthy, without A.Z. Thomas healthy as well, but it's still a challenge. So I'm curious from that standpoint, safeties as well, coverage there. It's going to be tough because A.Z. Thomas, you saw last week the impact when he left, the way things went. There were some holes there in the secondary. And Hunter Henry as well, quietly has had a good season. He's been solid. He's been productive. And the Jets this year have been much better against tight ends, which I give them credit for that. This is typically a defense in the past, specifically under Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh's defenses were great. But the one thing under Robert Saleh's defense is even when they were at their peak in 2022 and more so 2023, when they were the best defense in football, they always struggled against tight ends. They've done a better job of that. Hunter Henry, 30 receptions this season, 47 targets, 377 yards, 12.6 yards per reception, 4 touchdowns. When you look at those rankings among tight ends, he's been middle of the pack. He's been kind of where you would expect him to be, which is 14th in yards, tied for 18th in receptions. He's actually tied 23rd in the whole NFL, so inside the top 25 in touchdowns, and tied for 7th among tight ends. So has found the end zone a couple times this year. Kayshon Boutte, another one, the notorious beating Sauce Gardner last year in the second Patriots game, as we all remember. So hopefully that doesn't happen tomorrow. He is questionable hamstring, was listed limited the last 2 days, so we'll see. But it's kind of what you're working with there with the Patriots skill positions. I think mostly get home to Drake May, get some sacks, get home, get pressure on him. He's been sacked a ton this year. He's taken a lot of the blame for that. That's your path to putting the Patriots in some tough downs and down and distances. Getting them off the field on 3rd down is getting home to Drake May, especially without A.Z. Thomas, a little bit of the banged up secondary. So you're really working with some of your depth there. The best way to kind of limit that being a problem is finding a way to get pressure on the quarterback. So just some other matchups to watch here. I look at Justin Fields against this Patriots defense just in general. Really just have fun. That's kind of the best way I could put it. Just let it rip, play loose, take the handcuffs off. And that's kind of more of a message to Engstrand. Just let it rip, take chances. You've got nothing to lose. You're a 13.5 point underdog, 11.5 in some places, whatever. You're a double-digit point underdog on a short week against an 8-2 Patriots team. You got nothing to lose. You're 2-7. So go out there, take some risks, take some chances, let it rip. I feel like I am back in the Zach Wilson game previews because I remember with Zach Wilson, I'd sit here on the game previews, and every week I'd talk about let it rip, let it rip, let it rip. Because it would never be taking any chances downfield. It was the 5 to 10 yard box offense. And you would see guys running wide open downfield and he'd never throw it. And it would just be let it rip, let it rip. And here we are, let it rip. Can't wait for the day where we don't have to say that about a Jets quarterback, but we're still saying that for now. Breece Hall, Patriots run defense, that's a big one. Really will ultimately dictate most likely if the Jets are able to get anything against this Patriots team tomorrow, really able to make this a game. Jets receivers, tight ends, all that against the Patriots secondary. And really the Jets pass rush against this Patriots offensive line, against Drake May. He's taking some of the blame, not picking up some of the blitzes, holding on to the ball for too long a little bit, processing. So he's taking some of the blame. Get home. Make his life miserable as you can tomorrow night in Foxborough. One more thing, special teams. And I talked about this a little earlier. Number one, that I was going to mention special teams. But in a game like this, where you're such a big underdog, in a game like this, where you're such at odds to win, the little margins are what ultimately changes this game. And that's why I said interception, turn the ball over, force a turnover. Your best path to victory is winning the turnover battle. Getting potential big special teams play, which brings my point up to special teams here as we close out the episode. The Jets have the best special teams unit in the NFL. And there's some numbers from Michael Nania who posted it, so credit to him for these numbers this week, just about how good they've been. And when you look at their DVOA rankings among the rest of the league, and this season, the Jets have far and away been the best. And you have to give credit to Chris Banjo. And we talked about that on Monday's pod coming off of the Browns game. Banjo deserves a ton of credit. And he's one of those guys that you talk about seeing growth of this coaching staff. You talk about seeing positives from this coaching staff, not just the head coach and Aaron Glenn, but the rest of this staff. Banjo's been a guy where you've seen a ton of positives from. They are the first ranked special teams in the NFL in terms of DVOA rankings, at 11.5% overall. And I think this is just crazy, just to kind of show you how much better the Jets have been than the rest of the league. The gap between the Jets and the fourth place team is larger than the gap between the fourth place special teams team and the 26th ranked special teams. That's how much further the Jets are than everybody else. That's how much better the Jets have been than everybody else. We talked about Austin McNamara being one of the best punters in the NFL. Nick Folk remains one of the most consistent kickers in the NFL. And I'm not just throwing around. Jets fans aren't just throwing around best like it's nothing. They truly have been in those spots. And a lot of people don't want to hype up the special teams because it's like, oh, it's just special teams. But again, special teams is one of those things where it's not talked about unless if it's terrible. You don't notice it really unless if it's terrible. But it's been so good, you're starting to notice it in the good aspects. They're first in field goals over expected. They're first in kick return. They're second in punting. They're fifth in punt return and 11th in kickoff. Kanae Nwangu, AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. That was earlier today that came out. Isaiah Williams, the turnaround for him has been huge. You have to give credit for Banjo for that, sticking by him, even at bringing him back. They cut him, brought him back, sticking by him, throwing him out there after what happened on Monday night against the Dolphins. That's tough to come back from. He was able to do it. So special teams tomorrow play a big role. You want to upset, you want to shock the world tomorrow, special teams is going to have to play another big role. So that's it. Another pod down. My prediction for this one, I do think the Jets cover just because it's such a big spread. And maybe I'm going into this a little too optimistic and maybe I'm just a little over looking forward to what this team looks like in the challenge and how this coaching staff handles this challenge tomorrow. with 2 wins in a row and showing some progress against some against some poor teams. Now go out there and do it against a really good team on prime time on a short week. Big test. I think the Patriots win. I'm going to go 27-17. I think it's a double-digit game. I think it's a 10-point game. I do think the Jets cover, though. I do think the Patriots win. Your hope is, though, obviously the Jets to pull this one out, but can you see more positive signs? Can they be competitive? Don't go out there and embarrass yourselves tomorrow. The bar is still so low. Build off of what you've done these last 2 weeks and go out there tomorrow and make this a game. That's all I ask. So that'll do. Another episode in the books. Appreciate you all, as always, for tuning in. We'll be back with our game recap, of course. So stay tuned for that. Appreciate you all. Until next time, JETS. Jets, Jets, Jets.